Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation. Today, as performers and learners of Western instruments, we have all encountered and studied ornamentation. In the course of our studies, we have undoubtedly noticed that ornamentation has different rules in different periods, particularly in the Baroque and Classical periods. Today, we will take a detailed and specific look at these different rules and characteristics, as well as their causes through videos and my live performance. And this is my table of contents. And now let's talk about ornamentation, starting with what is it and what it does. Ornamentation has played an important role in the development of Western music. It's not merely a decorative embellishment, but also carries deeper functions ranging from rhetoric expression to emotional symbolize, from the Baroque period to the modern era. The rules and characteristics of ornamentation have changed with the evolution of instruments, structure, and musical aesthetic, with clear rules and characteristics in each period. In the literature review section, I referenced the views of several authoritative scholars. For example, Zizhao and Elliot argue that the Baroque period placed particular emphasis on improvisation and rhetorical expression, and Pro suggested that the Classical period tended towards standardization and clean notation. And Blue Rice argued that ornamentation shifted towards emotional symbolism and form freedom from the Romantic period to the modern era. Existing literature generally discussed the structure and aesthetic functions of ornamentation, which are closely related to instrument structure and cultural context. In terms of research methodology, I employed quantitative analysis, collecting data from multiple databases, J-Star Springer, and historical literature, categorizing and organizing it and conducting cross-period comparative analysis to summarize the rules, characteristics, and evolutionary trends of ornamentation across different eras. Finally, in this lecture, I will use videos and live performances of some experts to give everyone a more intuitive understanding. At the same time, I will also argue my research views and conclusions. The first thing we will discuss is trills, which are probably the most common type of ornamentation in musical works. During the Baroque period, trills were used more for rhetorical effects, typically starting from an upper auxiliary note and rapidly alternating while maintaining a clean rhythm. At that time, keyboard instruments such as the harpsichord and clavichord lacked a system and were unable to play legato. I will play videos of the harpsichord and clavichord as well as modern piano to compare the effects. And trios in the classical period became increasingly standardized, often appear. So by comparison, we can see that the sound of two baroque instruments is more precise when playing baroque works on a modern piano today. We must be careful not to use too many pedals or play too badly. Next is the classical period. Trios in the classical period become increasingly standardized, often appearing at the end of phrases to enhance harmonic resolution with clear notation on the score. The forms they begin with an auxiliary note gradually accelerating and ending with an modulation. The hammer mechanism of the forte piano creates a brilliant texture between notes, making it more suitable for rapid, clean trio expression. Composers such as Beethoven incorporated trios into the development of motif, making them an integral part of the structure. I will play a video of the forte piano and compare it with modern piano. Through video comparisons and playing demonstrations, it can be observed that the forte piano produces a crisp and clean sound. Therefore, when playing the modern piano, it is important to emphasize the clean and flexible characteristics of the trio from the classical period. You will also notice that the pianist in the video performs the trio from bottom to top, where I perform it from top to bottom. This difference stems from the fact that, according to classical period rules, the trio should typically be performed from top to bottom. However, considering the final performance effect and acoustics considerations, such as when the preceding note and the note above the trio are the same pitch, it may be more appropriate to perform the trio from bottom to top. Thus, it can also be observed that the rules for ornament sometimes prioritize practical performance considerations. And from romantic to modern times, trios have shifted from structure function to emotional expression. With a freer rhythm, composers typically indicate how to play it on the score. The square piano retains the granular texture and modern sustain of the old style. Enhancing expressiveness, Chopin, Liszt, and others use trios more boldly to create poetic atmosphere. And I will play a segment of Chopin's Ballade performed on the square piano, as well as the same segment played on the modern piano. emotional differences resulting from varying sustain and blend texture. In modern performances, special attention must be paid to pedal control and clarity to recreate the sound of 19th century instruments. More importantly, ornaments should be integrated into the music to express emotions rather than treated as an independent element. And as we come to this section of moderns, moderns were also a concise rhetorical device in the Baroque period, frequently appearing at cadence, accents, and dissonance. The moderns in the Baroque period were typically notated as trios, meaning they were played using the barrel trio technique. They are typically played twice with the direction or downward determined by the modern notation. These harpsichords and clavichords lack sustain mechanisms. They are often played with a more granular texture, particularly emphasizing how Baroque notation is influenced by both the instrument's structure and contemporary aesthetic. I will continue to play videos and live performances to demonstrate the differences. As seen in the video, Baroque instruments play moderns with great clarity and simplicity, and the number of back and forth movements is typically only once. Therefore, when playing on the modern piano, we should aim for simplicity and clarity. You may also notice that when I perform the same piece with two different musicians, the positions where moderns appear in the piece are different. This is because Baroque ornamentation has an improvisational quality, and composers did not specify them clearly in the score. Often they could be freely added in appropriate places. During the classical period, moderns become more standardized with clear notation, strict rhythm, and clarity and speed. The structure of the four-bit piano encouraged the high degree of separation between the main and secondary notes. I will compare Haydn's sonata performed on the four-bit piano and the modern piano through videos. find that when performing classical period works on the modern piano, pedal use should be minimized. Fingers should maintain higher independence and each note should be played clearly to preserve the characteristics clarity of classical period ornamentation. Sometimes in Mozart sonatas, we find that some fast passages with trills are played as moderns. This is because at times there is not enough time to complete a full classical period style trill during fast passages. Therefore, playing classical period moderns should be as even and clean as playing classical period trills. And by the Romantic to modern periods, moderns had become real, and composers often specified playing techniques directly, giving them greater expressive power. Composers such as Chopin and Schubert used them as tools to enhance melodic station and emotional detail. Thereby enriching the music, I will play videos of square pianos and modern pianos performing Schubert's work for a reason. By comparing the two videos, we can see that the modern piano has a better system, a louder sound, and a brighter time. Therefore, when playing ornaments in romantic and modern music today, we must make full use of this advantage to express the emotional content of the ornaments in more natural and prominent manner. And next is a partitura, which was used in the Baroque period to create suspense and tension. It delays the main notes slightly, allowing the musical emotion to be drawn out more fully. Generally, it occupies more than half the duration of the main note, but this depends on the duration and proportion of the two notes, especially in the case of partituras with dots, which require precise calculation of proportions, much like solving mathematical problems. On the harpsichord clavichord, the partitura makes the music sound more refined and aligned with the aesthetics of the time. I will play a video of the harpsichord and clavichord performing Bach's work and compare it with the modern piano performance of the same piece. can observe that this piece is not particularly fast, but it must be played with exceptional clarity. When performing on the modern piano, we should strive to create the characteristics of Baroque era instruments like in the sextet system, playing crisply and clearly. It is worth to notice that some pianists play the opening partitura shorter. This is a choice made by different pianists based on their own aesthetics, preferences, and interpretations of the piece. Deviate from theoretical rules, some pianists believe that even when performing Baroque music on modern instruments, one should use modern playing techniques. This is not necessarily incorrect. As music has no absolute rules, as long as the performance is beautiful and satisfies the audience, there is no need to adhere strictly to absolute rules. By the classical period, the notation and the performance of partituras have become quite standardized. They typically lasted half the duration of the main notes and were accented. On the forte piano, the rhythm of partituras was clearer and more flexible. In Mozart's works, many partituras were played evenly, sounding clean and elegant. I will demonstrate this through a comparison of video and live performances. As can be seen, partituras in the classical period were generally played exactly as written, with minimal improvisation. Therefore, when performing today, we should still pay attention to capturing the clean and bright characteristics of the classical period, ensuring that we play according to the score and established rules. And from Romanism to the modern era, the rules of partitura have become less rigid. Typically, the score already indicates how to play, with a greater emphasis on emotional expression. The sustain and volume of 19th century pianos allowed them to blend naturally into legato passages, enabling performers to interpret the music fully based on the score or even their own feelings. I will demonstrate this through a comparison of video and live performances. believe you can feel that square pianos and modern pianos are already quite similar, and the pursuit of music from the Romantic era to the modern era has increasingly leaned toward the expression of emotions, a more sensory aspect that transcends rationality. The last one is the ten. Baroque tens are often used to emphasize the end of a phrase or create harmonic stability. They mostly fall on strong beats and are played clearly and crisply. The short, brief sound of the harpsichord and clavichord makes the tens sound particularly clean. I will show you through a video comparison. Like the previous ornaments, Baroque era ornaments are primarily short and clean, but turns are typically not added prepositionally unless specific in the score. And next is classical period. Classical period turns place greater emphasis on structure, closely integrated with the melody, maintaining even rhythm and achieving precise harmonic coordination. The tone and striking technique of the forte piano give it both polarity and a sense of proportion. I will show you through a video comparison. Through comparison with one can sense that classical tones like Baroque tones are clean but more sane in nature. They maintain rationality while adding a brighter quality. From Romanticism to the modern era, the rhythm of tones has become more free, and sometimes composers will directly specific playing technique. For example, in Chopin's works, there are 5 notes power tone that create a rich sound effect when performing. The rhythm should be adjusted according to the musical style. I will demonstrate this through a comparison of video and live performance. and even in modern times, trends no longer require uniform volume or duration. Performers can express music more freely, provided that the ornament becomes an integral part of the phrase and does not feel like an independent element. In general, ornamentation has undergone significant changes, evolving from rhetorical improvisation in the classical period to the structured ornamentation of the classical era, and then to the more liberal ornamentation of the romantic and modern periods. Ornamentation is not merely decorative, it is an integral part of musical structure and emotional expression. It is not an independent element, but rather an integral component of music. And when performed, every ornamentation must be seamlessly integrated into the musical phrase. Ornaments also possess same quality in the Baroque and classical periods, though they may seem rigid and original. They still retain the same quality, but expressed in different ways. Although ornamentation has rules, these rules are not rigid. In action performance, one can appropriately add some dynamic flexibility within the framework of the rules, but one must not completely deviate from them. This makes the music more lively and beautiful. This is also where ornamentation fulfills its decorative function, enriching the music and handling the expression of emotions. Therefore, when learning and playing ornaments today, it is essential to adhere to these rules and grasp the characteristics of ornaments across different periods. This enables us to better express the style and beauty of music from various eras, while also making our performances more rigorous and academically valuable. However, this should never be done in a rigid or mechanical manner. The primary focus should always be on highlighting the beauty of the music. Oh, this is my reference list. Is there any question?
Okay. It was appreciated sharing. So, I do understand in the ornamentation principles of the Baroque period are directly applied to modern kind of performance. So, what conflicts in musical experience will arise, and how do these conflicts reflect differences in musical aesthetics?
Okay, Baroque ornamentation developed in reliance on harpsichord and clavichords, instruments with short sustain and repeated decay. These instruments have a crisp tone and lack pedal sustain. So details such as trills and partitura do not obscure the melody. However, the modern pianos learn long sustain, stronger resonance, and wider dynamic range mean that applying Baroque principles directly often results in ornaments tails become too long, causing the melody to become blurred, or even obscuring the main melodic line. Additionally, Baroque music emphasizes linguistic musical expression, where ornaments were part of the rhetorical structure of phrases, where on the piano aesthetics prioritize the extension of liner melodies and sonic richness. These two approaches fundamentally reflect a shift from linguistic aesthetics to sonic aesthetics. For modern performance, the solution lies in reducing pedal use, adjusting touch speed and dynamics to restore Baroque granularity and clarity, while leveraging and modern pianos to their advantages to create richer dynamic contrast, thereby blending the two aesthetic on the same platform.
In post-period performance research, How can we avoid historical definition while making academic literary forms?
The trend of so-called historical realizing, mechanically imitating historical documents and records as the sole standard, while ignoring the aesthetic context of contemporary performance and audiences. Such performances easily become academic displays lacking artist vitality. To avoid this issue, a balance must be struck between historical research, instrument adaptation, and contextual adaptation. On one hand, by studying historical sheet music performance, manual, and the history of musical instruments, one can understand the roots and aesthetic context of ornamentation at the time. On the other hand, one must acknowledge the structure and acoustic differences between modern and historical instruments and adjust performance methods accordingly, such as using touch and pedals to simulate historical timbre rather than simply calculating tempo and dynamics. Additionally, contemporary audience artillery habits and emotional receptivity must be considered. Replacing rigid location with historical form interpretation. This approach respects historical accuracy while maintaining artistic appeal in the recent day.
From a perspective of musical rhetoric, how has the semantic function of ornamentation changed over time? How does this change affect the audience interpretation of the emotions in a piece of music?
In the Baroque musical rhetorical system, ornaments are symbols with clean semiotics annotations. For example, descending appoggiaturas are often used to express size and ceremonies. Virtues symbolize exciting or tension. Listeners decode these signals in the same way they would read language. By the classical period, this rhetorical function gradually gave way to structural considerations, with ornamentation primarily serving to maintain syntactic integrity and balance. For example, drills often mark the conclusion of a phrase or the stabilization of harmony. In the Romantic period, ornamentation returned to the center of emotional expression, but no longer as fixed emotional labels, but rather as part of the composer's personality in language. For example, Chopin's appoggiaturas and trills not only decorate the melody, but also create atmosphere, delay the development of phrases, and thus drive the emotional progression. In the modern era, some composers have been abstracted ornamentation, detaching it from traditional functions and using it as a timbral material. In this context, listeners' perceptions rely more on the overall soundscape rather than decoding rhetorical meanings. This shift reflects the evolution of music from symbolic expression to a pure sound art, and it also alters the emotional interaction between listeners and the work. Okay, thank you for watching my presentation.